It's Monday, November 30th. I'm Lucy Steiner.
And I'm Sam Cedar. Which of these stories will you be talking about today?
Welcome back from the long holiday weekend. Wisconsin's recount firmly sealed the election for Joe Biden as Trump launched more conspiracy theories and continued to layer on legally incoherent court challenges. Meanwhile, the new Biden administration is predictably shaping up to be a rogues gallery of swampy DC think tankers. Sorry if we sound like a broken record on this one. There is news, I promise. And lastly, the assassination of a top Iranian nuclear scientist could be a troubling sign that Donald Trump is planning to attack or further inflame tensions with Iran before he leaves office.
You are listening to Majority FM's AM Quickie, and these are the stories you need to know.
At this point, there's almost no legal way Donald Trump can win the election. On Sunday, Wisconsin authorities announced the results of a recount the Trump campaign requested in 2 heavily Democratic counties. But rather than showing evidence of voter fraud or whatever else the Trump campaign was hoping, the recount only increased Biden's lead by 87 votes. Trump was undeterred, tweeting, quote, "The Wisconsin recount is not about finding mistakes in the count. It's about finding people who have voted illegally. We have found many illegal votes. Stay tuned," unquote. He added that this legal case will be brought on Monday or Tuesday, so brace yourself for a deluge of legal garbage at some point early this week. The clear reading of all this mess is that Trump probably realized he doesn't have a prayer of overturning the results. But the massive convoluted, often misspelled legal trash his lawyers and others associated with his campaign have been filing over the past few months are essentially just aimed at making everything as complicated and stupid as possible, while giving the lunatic conspiracy theorists fodder to screenshot and share misleading Facebook posts for the next decade. The bright side is that the Trump campaign had to pay $3 million for the recount, so at least they can brag that they created some public sector jobs in the process. And let's do a quick check-in with the Biden transition. The president-elect reportedly sprained his right ankle while playing with his dog. Glad he's taking some time to unwind in between nominating professional consultants to cabinet seats. Which brings us to story 2. Remember last week when the news out of the prospective Biden cabinet was depressing because it was quickly filling up with professional DC consultants and warhawks? Great, we're on the same page then. Unfortunately, this week it's just more of the same. A new report by The Intercept takes a wider look at Biden's foreign policy unit, noting that many of his advisors come from companies like Raytheon and Aerospace Corporation. But what's most concerning is the footprint of 2 companies in particular, West Exec Advisors and the investment firm it overlaps with called Pine Island Capital. Both of the leading candidates for Biden's defense secretary, former Undersecretary of Defense Michelle Flournoy and retired General Lloyd Austin, are partners at Pine Island. Also, Flournoy co-founded West Exec Advisors with Anthony Blinken, Biden's pick for Secretary of State. But hey, the bigger news today for most media outlets is that Biden's communications team will be all women. That's right, the press secretary, communications director, official spokesperson, and the rest of the communications department's leadership will all be women. And that's a great thing, because we all know it's impossible for women to lie to the public for years and then transition back into jobs as spokespeople for massive corporations like Amazon and McDonald's. You know, like all of Obama's press secretaries did. And the final worrying sign comes from Rahm Emanuel Watch. According to Axios, Biden is strongly considering him for Secretary of Transportation. Biden is also reportedly going to nominate prolific tweeter, union buster, and notoriously dramatic nonprofit boss Neera Tanden to lead the Office of Management and Budget. Will this mean she'll take a break from screaming at Bernie Sanders supporters on Twitter, or will she just get to do it from an official executive branch account? Outside of the personnel changes and legal shenanigans currently occupying most of the news feeds these days, there are worrying signs that Trump is going to leave office with the U.S. embroiled in some kind of destructive game of brinksmanship with Iran. Over the weekend, unknown assassins killed Mohsen Fakhrizadeh, one of Iran's top nuclear scientists, in an ambush in broad daylight outside of Tehran. Iran has blamed Israel for the murder, which is probably a pretty safe bet, while also noting that it was aimed directly at causing turmoil before Joe Biden takes office. In a speech, Iranian President Hassan Rouhani said, quote, "This brutal assassination shows that our enemies are passing through anxious weeks that they feel their pressure era is coming to an end and the global conditions are changing," unquote. An anonymous U.S. official told the Washington Post that America had nothing to do with the killing, but it's unlikely that the Israelis make a killing that prominent without someone at the CIA getting a heads up. This, coupled with the news that Trump has openly told the military to plan an attack on Iranian nuclear facilities, means that Biden could inherit an extremely unstable foreign policy situation come January.
And now, for some quicker quickies.
Quicker Quickie.
In a truly inexplicable, wildly irresponsible move, New York City Mayor Bill de Blasio announced he would reopen public elementary schools and reduce so-called hybrid learning, eliminating the positive test case threshold for closing schools. While we're on that note, top federal officials forecasted a post-Thanksgiving surge in coronavirus cases, saying that travelers, quote, have to assume you were exposed, unquote. Bodes pretty grim for the rest of the holiday season. Big businesses like Nike, Coca-Cola, and Apple are all lobbying against a bill that would ban imported goods made with forced labor in China's Xinjiang region. That sounds about right for them. Trump is engaging in a last-minute push to expand his border wall with Mexico, the New York Times reports, as a final act of direct physical racism and xenophobia against immigrants.
Quicker, Quickie.
That's it for the Majority Report's AM Quickie today. Stay tuned for the full show with Sam later this afternoon.